Good morning, everybody. This is a live update with hurricane warnings now issued for the Florida Keys. That includes Key West. The shift in track has been gradual to the west. Now it looks like a Category 1 Hurricane Eta is going to make a very close pass by the Florida Keys late tonight or early Monday morning, and it does look like it could intensify into a hurricane. It did have a pass over Cuba, and it has emerged over water now, so we do expect Tropical Storm Eta to gradually intensify as it's making a westward and northwestward turn toward the Florida Keys. That close by pass through the Florida Keys is expected late tonight, maybe early tomorrow morning. The official Hurricane Center now has a Category 1 hurricane at 5 a.m. just to the west of Key West, and this westward shift in the forecast track actually takes the official track of Eta just to the south of the Keys, but that would bring the dirty side or the dangerous side of the storm over the Florida Keys with onshore flow expected tonight, and a dangerous storm surge is also expected of 2 to 4 feet throughout the Florida Keys, and actually a storm surge of 1 to 3 feet is anticipated across the east coast of Florida all the way up pretty far north actually. Dangerous storm surge is expected, but the 2 to 4 foot storm surge, greatest surge, is expected along the Florida Keys and wrapping around the southwestern coast of Florida as well. After Eta passes by, then you'll get that wind shifting out of the due south, and that's going to bring that surge into the southwest coast of Florida. And a meandering path is expected through the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Relatively warm water exists out in this region of the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, down further south into the western Caribbean as well, but very generally, throughout this region in the southeast Gulf of Mexico, temperatures are above 28 degrees Celsius, which is sufficient to maintain a tropical storm and actually continue to gradually intensify. And there is an upper level low that is moving from east to west across the Gulf of Mexico. It's actually gaining a bit of a negative tilt to it, and this hurricane is actually going to pass just on the northeast side of that lobe of that upper trough, and that's going to cause us to bend back to the west. And there is actually a reduction in the wind shear anticipated today just ahead of this upper trough. So there is a lot of dry air that's surging from west to east across the Gulf of Mexico, and that could get wrapped into the inner core and could prevent Eta from reaching hurricane strength later on tonight. But the reduction of wind shear should counteract that negative effect from that dry air and lead to a little pocket of favorable conditions for Eta to continue to intensify, and it should continue to intensify as it moves into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico as well. Basically a little safety cocoon on the northeastern side or northern side of this negatively tilted upper trough. There's an area of reduced wind shear called a col area, C-O-L area, basically between these two upper level lows. There's another upper level low across northern Florida, another one across the lower Mississippi River Valley with an extension down into the Gulf of Mexico, and that area in between those two troughs that I'm basically drawing here in pink is a little bit of an area that is going to be favorable for intensification with a reduction of wind shear. As Eta is moving rapidly southwest and northeast at about 10 knots towards central Cuba, it is experiencing quite a bit of southwest and northeast oriented wind shear, but in a storm relative sense, maybe not as much wind shear as you might think. But now that Tropical Storm Eta has stalled and is beginning this northwestward turn, that's coincided with the reduction in the upper level wind shear with that call area, as we talked about, to the north side of this negatively tilted upper low that basically extends from Sabine Pass, that border between Texas and Louisiana, all the way down into the central Gulf of Mexico. But it is associated with quite a bit of dry air, and I'm going to show you that on satellite imagery real quick here with the water vapor loop. And here you can see that dry air that is whipping through the southeastern Gulf of Mexico and also in between Cuba and Florida here. This dry air has been teasing this tropical cyclone all day yesterday. It was able to have quite a few convective bursts near the center that seem to be just ahead of this dry air to not be influenced by it. And if anything, the nose of this dry air, the nose of this upper level trough, punching into the south side of this hurricane may carve out an environment that is just favorable for intensification into a hurricane here. The north side of this negatively tilted upper level trough, there's an area of just reduced wind shear called a call area. You can even see it in satellite just on the north side of this dry air. Here you can see the cloud elements moving from east to west direction there. So really a tropical cyclone turning to the northwest in a storm relative sense here is going to have a reduction in wind shear. But this dry air punching in here on the south side of the circulation is definitely going to have a negative impact. We're just not sure how much. Right now, the Hurricane Center thinks that dry air is not going to have as much of a negative impact as the positive impact here from this call area, or an area of a reduced wind shear to the north of that upper level low, basically like a safety cocoon, allowing for it to intensify. And Cuban radar has showed that the center is offshore now, and we're already starting to see a flare-up of that convection now that it's over the relatively warm water there between Florida and Cuba, well in excess of 28 degrees Celsius. And I do expect this flare-up of convection to continue throughout the day today, as we're going to see this northwestward turn toward the Florida Keys, passing near or just to the south of Key West as a Category 1 hurricane. That's the forecast right now, and that's why we have hurricane warnings that have been issued for the Florida Keys. You can see those alerts here on the Radar Omega app. Tropical storm warnings off to the north. Miami are just to the north of that hurricane warning area, but a tropical storm warning is in effect there. And some latest GFS model runs have actually shown Eta intensifying quite a bit here over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, expecting to encounter some weaker steering currents, a stalling out system eventually turning off to the northeast. Some of those models are showing that. The GFS model even has the approach of a pretty intense hurricane near the Tampa area toward the end of next week. So Eta is just forecast to meander out here over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, eventually making that turn to the northeast. I'm still experiencing some cold-like symptoms. I'm trying to get a rapid COVID test just to get a negative test. And if I go asymptomatic and if I get a negative COVID test, and I'm a position for the second landfall. But due to these symptoms, just to be to take supreme precautions, I'm going to probably be doing weather briefings during the landfall tonight, just monitoring the landfall here of Tropical Storm, maybe Hurricane Eta in the Florida Keys overnight tonight. So my plan is to go all night tonight doing these live briefings to monitor Eta coming in. It's a little bit different for me. I definitely wish that I could be out there in the Florida Keys on 7 Mile Bridge, holding a Kestrel in the air to measure those dramatic wind speeds and deploying surginator sensors up and down the Keys to measure that 2 to 4 foot storm surge that is warned. But it's just better to play it safe, not put anybody at risk, and I'm going to try to get a rapid COVID test today. But I definitely do have a lack, no sense of taste or smell happening, but it does feel just kind of like a minor cold with some aches and pains, a little bit, no respiratory issues whatsoever. So it very easily could just be a little bit of a cold. But back to this hurricane. I'm going to be breaking this down, doing these live briefings through the night tonight. This right here is the National Hurricane Center track for 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. Expected to be near the dry Tortuga Island out there just to the west of Key West out there. That's the hurricane warning area. And you can see just a bit of a convective flare up again. Hurricane Hunter aircraft has measured 70 knot winds out there just as it emerged off the coast of Cuba. So remarkably, Hurricane Eta really didn't weaken at all as it was passing over the island of Cuba. That's kind of a relatively low area of Cuba there in the central eastern section of Cuba, so not as much in the way of mountains that could tear that storm system apart. But here you can see the sea surface temperatures, the latest sea surface temperatures across the Gulf of Mexico, and you really want to watch this 27 degree isotherm there. These are sea surface temperatures, and really anything above 27 degrees C will favor intensification and organization of the tropical cyclone. That's enough oceanic heat content to basically allow the development and the progression of those positive feedbacks that lead to the intensification and organization of these tropical cyclones into hurricanes. And you can see, especially the east coast, southeast coast of Florida, all the way through the Keys, and then down into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico in the vicinity of the loop current is way above normal, or just above 27 degrees C. So that will definitely support an intensifying tropical cyclone, and even a tropical cyclone meandering out here over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. You're going to be talking about 27 to 28 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures that can definitely support the GFS solution there, showing an intensification of Eta in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and definitely could cause some problems for the west coast of Florida. Even though you do have that narrow ribbon of temperatures that are below 27 degrees C right along the west coast of Florida, if we actually do have an Eta that's accelerating off to the northeast, it's still going to cause problems. That's just not enough cold water there right along the west coast of Florida to really substantially weaken an Eta that's moving at a non-negligible speed off to the northeast. But you can also see this warm water basically from the Florida Keys south, and that track is expected to be right along that 27 degree isotherm there in the northern Gulf of Mexico between Florida and Cuba. A further west track, that's been the change since yesterday. Yesterday it looks like we could have some impacts up near Miami, even a direct landfall possible with Eta, but since that time the negative tilt of this upper trough has become more pronounced and encouraging actually a further westward track. And the center of this storm could actually miss the Keys a bit, at least Key West. And but that would bring the dirty side and that onshore flow and that worst surge into the Florida Keys. But it's pretty amazing how these systems like to follow the warm water. That's what gives them life. Basically, the purpose of a hurricane is to transport heat from the warm ocean waters up high up into the atmosphere and eventually poleward. So basically the role of hurricanes is to transport heat from the equator up poleward on planet Earth because of the unequal radiative heating that you get along the equator in this planet, and you need certain mechanisms to transport that heat aloft and poleward, and tropical cyclones are one of those primary mechanisms of transporting heat from the very warm ocean waters aloft in the troposphere and poleward, where you have a radiative sink, of course, at the poles with those lower sun angles. But here you can see the warm water of the loop current in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, making it possible for us to get yet another hurricane landfall, extending that record this year. I think we've had 6 hurricane landfalls, which ties the record with 2005. So if we get another landfall of a Hurricane Eta, even if it is Key West late tonight or tomorrow morning, then that's going to further extend that record and further put 2020 in a class of its own. Here is that storm surge warning by the National Hurricane Center, expecting a life-threatening storm surge basically from Miami southward through the Florida Keys. 2 to 4 foot surge is expected, and that's going to wrap around the southwestern coast of the Florida Peninsula as Eta passes by in the morning hours. You're going to get those southerly winds, southwesterly winds back on the east side of the circulation, and that's going to pile up the water on the southwest side of Florida. Much of this is Everglades down here, but you do have some more populated areas a little closer to Naples as well, up there in the southwestern part of Florida. So those are the storm surge warnings there. 2 to 4 feet expected. These have been upgraded a bit with further intensification expected into a hurricane. And this is some of the supporting evidence from the hurricane reconnaissance aircraft here that led to the issuance of those hurricane warnings. 70 knot winds measured on the north side of that circulation as Tropical Storm Eta has now migrated back over the warm waters to the north of Cuba, and looks like on satellite that it is beginning that northwestward turn, and appears to have some convective flare-ups as well, as just on the north side of that negatively tilted upper level trough, it's carved out a little area that's favorable for further intensification with reduced upper level wind shear. And so this is pretty alarming, though. This hurricane recon measurements really showing that Eta did not lose anything as it was passing quite rapidly over that portion of Cuba, the relatively skinny portion of Cuba as well. And now it's over these warm waters, beginning a northwestward turn toward the Florida Keys. That's going to happen tonight. We're going to be watching it here live, so be sure to stay tuned. Here's some more hurricane recon data. This is from tropicaltidbits.com. Levi Cohen produces some incredible visualizations for this data in real time. And here is the red curve for extrapolated pressure down to the ocean surface, dropping down to about 993 millibars there near the center of Eta. But as those convective bursts happen throughout the day today, we could see some further strengthening, dropping closer to 990 millibars. And many of the models are showing an intensification into a low end Cat 1 hurricane. And there is some pretty complex steering mechanisms at play right now happening here. Here is the GFS forecast 500 millibar vorticity and those height contours as well. You can see a big time trough dominating the Mountain West, prompting blizzard warnings across portions of northern Montana. That's because to the east of this trough, lee cyclogenesis is happening, tightening up those contours, those isobars on the backside of that low, and that low is going to lift through the Canadian prairies, bringing with it blizzard conditions on the northwest side of it, from north central Montana through southwestern Saskatchewan, eventually up into the northern lakes region of Manitoba as well. But this trough is right now at peak intensity. You can see it digging way down into the Four Corners region. Winter storm warnings are in effect for the San Juans of Colorado, where we could get 2-3 feet of snow, maybe even more than that. Big snowfall accumulations expected from this system in the San Juans. Wolf Creek ski area down there, probably going to open for some powder days. Keystone already had its opening day on Friday, but with this snow event coming in with winter weather advisories all the way up through the I-70 corridor, quite a bit of snow expected up there. And here you can see that upper level low, negative tilt, basically banana shaped upper level low extending from northwest to southeast, classic negative tilt. Weird little upper level low up here too, but mainly a compact subtropical high dominating the mid-Atlantic region. And really that zone between this negatively tilted upper level low and this compact subtropical high off the mid-Atlantic region is carving out an area that's relatively favorable for intensification into a Category 1 hurricane as Eta passes over the Florida Keys. And also this negatively tilted upper level low is encouraging a bend back to the northwest. Now passing near or just to the south of Key West late night tonight or early tomorrow morning, and then potentially re-intensifying here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico as this upper level low is going to lose its identity and basically become a little vorticity streamer there. And really you get dominance of these subtropical highs this year from the mid-Atlantic region down into the southeastern U.S. into the northern Gulf of Mexico. That's why it's been such an active hurricane season for much of the Gulf Coast. And we really haven't seen those monster hurricanes in the open Atlantic that are recurving to the north. Pretty harsh environment out there in the open Atlantic. And that's kind of been the story for this year. But what's interesting is that the GFS actually intensifies Eta. This is the 6Z run last night. Intensifies Eta to the west-southwest of the Florida Keys. Actually a further south track just to the south of the Keys, keeping it over that warm water, 27 to 28 degrees C. You can see our once formidable upper-level storm system that was dominating the Mountain West, shearing out over top this subtropical ridge here over the Mid-Atlantic. This thing is just going to remain entrenched probably till after Thanksgiving, and then eventually these troughs are going to start to erode that subtropical high, and I expect that that's going to give us a tornado outbreak or two between Thanksgiving and Christmas down here in Dixie Alley, but we've got to get through monster subtropical ridge season here. And we're still in the middle of hurricane season with Eta probably intensifying there in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. This is Tuesday, Wednesday, and it actually wouldn't turn back to the northeast toward the west coast of Florida until the end of next week. So Thursday or Friday type of a time frame, as you can slowly start to see this anticyclone beginning to get eroded as a pattern shift is trying to happen across the country. Basically a transition from hurricane season into the winter. But still, you've got this blob, a pretty intense Eta down there, approaching the west coast of Florida on Thursday into Friday. Could even be a major hurricane landfall there on the west coast of Florida. You don't want to rule that out. Looks like Friday landfall near the Tampa area, maybe a little bit south of there. But weak steering currents are going to be the story down there for Eta, and it's just going to meander for the entire week next week, maybe eventually spinning down. Here's another trough coming into the south central U.S. around November 14th, in the middle part of November. The first effort there to try to break down this subtropical ridge or send it further east where it should be, closer to Bermuda. And you can see these systems diving southeast from the Gulf of Alaska, coming into the Mountain West, bringing with it a lot of snow. So I expect it to be a pretty snowy winter for the Mountain West, including the central and northern Rockies, with these storm systems diving south in this flow from the northeastern, or from the Gulf of Alaska, intensifying over the Mountain West, and then shearing out over this subtropical ridge until we get a big time trough that comes in probably after Thanksgiving. I could definitely see that happening in Dixie Alley down there. I was just talking to Brandon this morning about the prospect of late season tornadoes in Dixie Alley to close out 2020. So that's what we're looking at with the with Eta. And let's go back to Eta really quick. These are the latest hurricane models, also from that Tropical Tidbits website. The last GFS run I was showing you is from the pivotalweather.com website, a credible website for model visualization and the satellite imagery. Those tropical tracks as well, the NHC tracks that was on the Radar Omega app. And here you can see these hurricane models and that westward bend. You know, a couple of these models were even having a track over the western Bahamas and then bending back to the west further up the Florida coast. That scenario is definitely a lot less likely. And this is the 12Z runs, definitely patiently awaiting the 18Z runs. But they're showing almost a due left-hand turn, becoming almost due westerly motion in the next 24 hours, actually in 12 hours, stalling out just to the southeast of Florida, but then making that hard left-hand turn as a negatively tilted upper level trough is existing like this. And it's associated with a lot of dry air wrapping into the south side of that circulation, but it is encouraging this steering flow dramatically, taking a hard westward turn. And I think that with these trends, there's a decent chance that Eta could even miss the Florida Keys late night tonight through tomorrow morning, end up stalling out down here, maybe becoming a more intense hurricane, increasing everybody's blood pressure throughout the northeastern Gulf Coast here, and then beginning that northeastward turn. And right now, a majority of these models are showing Tampa having impacts by the end of next week, Thursday, Friday type of a situation. The GFS model is showing a more stout tropical cyclone up there. And it's all because of this negatively tilted upper level trough dominating the Gulf of Mexico, but really carving out this little call area here, an area of reduced wind shear on the north side of that negatively tilted trough with a compact anticyclone building in to the mid-Atlantic region. And the intensity models are all over the place, but a couple of those members are showing intensification into a pretty stout hurricane as it stalls out in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. And if I can get a negative COVID test, become asymptomatic, I'm definitely going to be monitoring that West Florida intercept at the end of next week. And I'm going to be streaming live tonight, throughout the night tonight, as an expected landfall of Eta is expected during the early morning hours. This is the official track at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, has it just to the west of Key West. This is Key West out here. I think there's a fort or some areas that you can visit, tourist attractions out there, the dry Tortugas to the west of Key West. Likely going to be the place to be out there if you can get out to the dry Tortugas to ride it out. But I do expect a little bit of a convective flare-up. You're probably going to see some banding as well start to form in this convection, kind of curling back into that center, creating a bit of a comma head. Just a really compact, slingshotting comma head coming right into the Florida Keys here, bringing with it a 2 to 4 foot storm surge throughout the Keys late night tonight, tomorrow morning. And I do think that as this thing intensifies during the day today, it looks to me like this dry air is not going to be an issue, and it's actually just going to slide to the south of the circulation, maybe even encapsulate it a bit, but I think that this dry air is just going to slide to the south of it, and Eta is going to exist just to the north of that negatively tilted trough in this relatively favorable environment for further intensification as it meanders all the way into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. So that's what we're looking at here with Eta. Here you can see that convective burst a bit closer to the center. Actually, on the northwest side of the center has some decent convection. The low-level center is probably more in this general area with an expanding convective shield on the north side of the circulation, and that could be a sign that that wind shear is beginning to reduce here on the north side of that negatively tilted trough. You can see all this dry air coming in here in the south side of the circulation, even some fair weather cumulus down there, a complete lack of convection out there. So it is starting to get a bit of a subtropical hybrid type of an appearance eventually, as that dry air will cut in and it could get more of a comma head look. But this dramatic westward turn expected during the day today, really over the next 6 to 12 hours, it's anticipated. Could happen earlier, as many of the models are showing an earlier turn to the due west. But even if that turn to the west happens earlier, that's still going to bring a dangerous storm surge throughout the Florida Keys late night tonight through tomorrow morning. You could maybe start to see some of this dry air start to cut into the east side of the circulation, but I still don't think it's going to be too much of a limiting factor. It's more just going to encapsulate that warm inner core, and this is a pretty favorable environment just to the north of that negatively tilted upper level low for further intensification. So that's what our Sunday is going to be like. We're going to be watching satellite imagery, watching for this expected intensification with Eta, and could be a hurricane upon close pass there just off the Florida Keys. So a pretty stormy night expected, especially late night tonight through tomorrow morning. And we're going to be watching it live here at Team Dominator headquarters. Thank you, everybody, for listening to my weather reports, and I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. And I'm going to be back live this evening as Eta is closing in on the Florida Keys. Never stop chasing.